Hey, it's Curly, and today we've got ourselves Evenfall Onslaught Booster Pack 12 for Cardfight Vanguard will+dress. This is the second to last set that will be featuring the original will+dress cast. We might end up having a new sort of dress style anime. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. Right now, we just know that set 13 is the last set of this iteration of, I guess, Vanguard, and we'll get something new with set 14. But this is the second to last set. It is part of the main climax of the anime with, the end of the uniformers and all that jazz. And it's a, decent set. It has a lot of cool stuff. For example, the Bastion Accord, which is probably the thing that everyone wants from this set. There's also the new unit here in the Omnia Gruzio, I believe it is, but I just kind of call it Omnia Noguchi. Because it's Snake, and I seem to like calling snakes Gucci. Got the somewhat controversial Magnolia mask here, the often forgotten about Garidia mask, the Valley Lord, which is the overdress for Trick Moon, and of course the Orphis mask, which actually becomes extremely strong in this set. So we're just going to go ahead and crack this open here. Going to do a great job of getting these things not to rip. Maybe the box quality has changed? I don't know. We actually finally have a new image here for will+dress. I feel like they've been using a bunch of the older images. So we got something new here, so, I guess check out will+dress. I've been very vocal about how unhappy I am with the anime, so if that's what you're into, go ahead and check it out. Of course, we've got ourselves box hoppers, as we've been getting since, I believe, set 9 or 10. This wave of box hoppers is kind of whatever. It was actually announced really early on what was going to be into it, and at the time, it was kind of cool, because there was a couple of promos that were reprinted, which we were, waiting for this to be like useful promos to be reprinted. But we've got here the support card for Medial and for Hazari. Don't even know if it's going to be played come set 4. And then we got the Adore Hatchet Dragon, which was a card needed for Overlord that was also a promo. I think it was like the buy-in promo, possibly. So it was kind of hard to get, but it got reprinted a couple of times, and Overlord isn't as popular for the most part, so it's kind of whatever at this point, which is kind of the case with all the box hoppers from this wave. We got ourselves here Dragon, that's actually for both the overdress and if you've got arms, which is pretty cool, so it works for both. We got ourselves the starter here for the Omnia. This is Omnia Crow here, which is pretty cool. So blast 1, look at top 5 for the a grade 3. So either Persona or the mask copy from the top 5. And if you didn't, you still charge 2, so you refund the cost and get yourself an extra card. And so we got the starter here, which I might actually end up using in a lot of different decks because it's a cute little cat. Got some overdress support. We got our first double rare here in the Drag Ritter Basilia here. When this is discarded in battle phase, you can put this to so and retire one of your opponent's back row rear guards. I don't know. This will see play. It's possible this might see play with Shiranui. But right now I don't think there's anything really that discards in battle phase that really needs this per se. We're actually going to get our first triple rare here also in the Gore Gravidia Noldinger Mask here. Card that, hasn't been unfortunately seen as much play as maybe some people would have liked. They had an opportunity to revitalize this deck with the mask, and I feel like they didn't really hit it on the head as well. So as any of the other masks, you can only write it with, if you write over the original, then you remove the original, basically the original, but any Nordlinger that has a different name for the mask, to get 3 meteorites from your drop, put into your hand. Then it has the main skill that when it attacks a Vanguard, you counterblast 1, put any number of meteorites from your order zone to drop, and for every 2 put into drop by this cost, you can choose up to 1 unit from your hand and call it to rear. Then if you put 4, your triggered effects activate twice to the end of that battle, but you lose out on the power and the crit that Gravidia originally had, which is kind of the main downfall of this card. Calling stuff out from hand is kind of whatever, but you can enable some interesting combos because of the way this works. I feel like we need a couple of little bit of support in order to actually make this a little bit more playable. And so there's actually the grade 2 here, which is interesting because it lets you pull out a trigger from your deck and put it to soul so you can later on bind it. We got the new arms here for Bhav Sagra. This is the one that they both have the skill where they let you equip at the end of your turn, but this is the one that makes your opponent call 2 or more, which is pretty cool. They've got these a couple of weird, like what I call psycho cards, but they're not really psycho cards. Typically it's the triple rare versions, but they have these cards that are just for every nation here, that they just repeat the same effect. This is one where if your Vanguard has a crit 2 or greater, this gets 10k. We got ourselves, ironically, a new grade 1 for Eugene. So whenever you ride upon this with the grade 2 from Eugene, if your opponent has no rear guards, you you draw. I don't know why I got mixed Soul Blast and drawing. Then in your soul, you can retire something that's rested to call this to rear, and it gets 5k. So after Eugene's skill, you can make use of this. We got ourselves a cool little card here for Trick Moon that will not be seen play because I think it is in order. It's going to clash, but it lets you call a Trick Moon from drop, and then it makes it where an overdress it gets plus 10k. And we got ourselves the Bazaar Visitor for Gravidia, which unfortunately is only for Gravidia Mask. But whenever you attack or boost, choose 2 meteorites from your hand, put them into your order zone, and if you put 1 or more, this gets 5k, and if you put 2, you Soul Blast 2, draw a card. So the cost is a bit heavy, but it does help you free up your hand from all those meteors that you just put in there. And we're actually going to get an FFR of the Rosarium Fairy. That is quite insane. This is also one of the chase cards for this set, because next set with Leonore Vivance, I think I've just been calling her like Vivian, Leonore Vivian or whatever. This is one of the more powerful cards for Leonore, but it's also a Grand Fia card. So this says when this is placed, you can retire another unit to call up to 2 plant tokens. So it gives you basically 1 plant token, depending on how you work this out. Then it also says that when it attacks, if you have a Vanguard with Grand Fia or Leonore in its card name, and your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, you choose one of your other back row rear guards and increase this unit's power by that unit's power to the end of that battle. So if you have a really big booster, you can then have this get that thing's power, similar to like the Raylinda and Momoke token thing, but you can just keep doing this even if you restand it, right? It's not once per turn. So insane that I got this in FFR. It actually looks pretty nice, not gonna lie. Got ourselves Funny Mushroom Man. We've got ourselves some grade 2 Bastion support. Interesting prison card. This card, which is just some random card that gets shield power. This is a card for Hexorb that I don't know if it'll see play, but it does say when this is placed on rear, if you have a sorceress, which is good because you can use this on turn 1 technically. But if you have a Vanguard sorceress in its card name, you discard, look at the top 2 from your deck, choose 1, put your hand, put the rest on the top of your deck. So that's actually will, I think, see a lot of play. So that's pretty cool. It's a shame it's a common, so you can't get it in FR. This I think is going to work really well with Gravidia Mask, because it says if your opponent's rear guard is retired by the ability of a set order, this gets 10k power. Pretty much only works with the meteors for the most part. So you can very easily have this be a 20k beater, 30k with the mass persona ride, and then you can call this out as another target, for example, when you call stuff from hand. This card is pretty funny. The magic of cycling wind parries here, because if it's the 5th battle, you can bind her, so then basically active PG. Alright, got some somewhat generic support here. This I don't know if it will actually be good. This is Splinter of Progression, Spark Chamber. But if you put a grade 2 or greater set order to your order zone, you retire this to countercharge 1, which is kind of cool. This is also kind of cool. If you play an order, it gets 5k, and if something restood, it gets 5k, but it starts 8k. Then we got ourselves the Bruce card here, which makes it so that whatever is it's boosting gets the Battle Door effect. Yeah, it's only when it boosts something. So if your opponent tries to guard this from hand, you have to call 2 or more cards, and also gets 5k. And it's also pretty cool that's active on Final Rush, so it's active on your first grade 3 turn if you go first, as opposed to everything else being locked to Final Burst. But then you retire this, which I think is kind of unnecessary, but it can have some uses. So I think this card is something that's kind of slept on by the Bruce boys. Then we got ourselves a new Dino Dragon here, which has that skill with the crits that I was talking about, but this one actually lets you counterblast to draw 1, which is interesting. So we had some pretty big hits to start off, but so far nothing too crazy. I feel like we just opened the very first pack that was exactly the same as this. Word for card for card, it was exactly the same. The only difference being this here. And then we got ourselves the other new arms for Buff Sagra. So this just says for each trigger type that's in your bind zone, you Soul Blast and it gets a 5k shield. For every 2, I should say, unfortunately. And then this one says the same thing, where at the end of the battle you can switch out for a right arm, the other one was left. But also this retires a back row and gives your Vanguard 10k. So this probably will not see as much play as much as the axe, but we'll see. These cards look crazy cool. I didn't know this was actually a Flagbird support card. But unfortunately it says if it's the 4th battle of this turn or more, this gets 10k shield, which is kind of dumb. You have to get attacked 4 times to have something that's 15k shield. There's a lot of dragons for Shokei that look exactly the same to me. They might have the same illustrator, but they just look very, very similar. Because there's like the promo dragon for Granfee and Leonore, and then there's the dragon for Magnolia Mask, and then there's this random dragon here. I've got a cute little angel. Got this relatively useless Gravidia card. They did the same thing, I believe, for Orphis, but it just says if you have specifically the mask, it gets 5k attack and shield, but Gravidia already had cards that did this. So this was kind of pointless, and the fact that it's locked to the mask is kind of dumb. This is a pretty interesting tech option that I think might actually see play. One of the better commons in this set, the Knight of Lucidity Belenth here. So this says on place, you counterblast this card from a card from your hand. Choose one of your opponent's rear guards. Your opponents put all of the cards from your drop or on field, the same card name as that chosen one, to the bottom of their deck in any order. So the main example people use, the main example people use to vouch for the usefulness of this card is, of course, the Prison Dragons. Opponent has 2 prison. Your Zogre opponent has 2 Prison Dragons. You select one. Both of them that are on field go to bottom of the deck, as well as anything they have in drop. So this is like a huge anti-roaming Prison Dragon card, which is pretty cool. Whoopsie daisy wazy. We got the really cool order here, Blessings of Flowering Buds, which is a grade 0 normal order that says all of your rear guards with 5k original attack or less get 10k power, and then if they hit, you can return them to your hand. So it lets you be really aggressive with your tokens or even your triggers in Storkea. So I think that's pretty cool. Then we've got ourselves a double rare here, Unwavering Maiden Yolanda here. So in this boost, you retire 2 of your other grade 1 or less rear guards. So draw them. This gets 10k to the end of that battle. So this is like the Moth Fairy that we got in set 5, that you would use to retire 2, counterblast, retire 2 to get 5k and draw 1 and act. But this is instead when you boost, so arguably better, and it also doesn't cost anything other than rear guards, right? So it's Mushroom Man and a bunch of repeats here. Oh, very nice. So we've got ourselves the yellow Jeweled Beast Topaz here. They did a weird thing where they could have just given them the gem names, but they kind of bastardized the gem names. Instead of just making it Topaz, it's Topaz. But anyways, these are the new Psycho cards from set 11, one for each nation in triple rare. They're actually, for the most part, pretty useful. But they have this skill that just says when placed on Guardian or Rear Guard, you choose 2 cards from Solar Drop that were originally from your right deck, put them back to your right deck face up. So it's a very interesting cost to be able to use. So technically just about every deck can use it to an extent, but they have a different skill depending on which circle you play it on. The second skill is always the same, where it gets 15k, making it a 20k shield. The Keter Sanctuary one is actually really strong because it lets you look at the top 5 and choose up to any unit from among them and call it. If it's, greater than or equal to your Vanguard, and call it a rear guard circle. And if it is not in main phase, so you do this in battle phase, you have to rest that unit, which is kind of fine. So very nice to get an extra copy of these, as well as the Ruin Collector in FR, which I really want to get my hands on it, because I will be playing Amon-Aguirre once I get all my pieces for it. But the Rune Collector here is really cool. He looks really cool. Many people have mentioned that his name is very iconic in terms of old Vanguard cards. It just has kind of simple names. But this has the skill that just says whenever this is placed on rear, you may soul charge one. You know I love me that. And then whenever you put it to soul for the effect of your Vanguard, the ability of your Vanguard with Omnia in its card name, it counts as 2 cards. So for the restand, you just have to put in one of these. So really happy I got an FFR, or FR of that, I should say. What's Dragon again? Cute Angel, Gore, some Dragon Tree stuff, and we got ourselves a Mask of Hidragroom. Very nice. This did get reprinted, originally released in set 10. And now I got reprinted again in set 11, which is really cool, because this is, of course, a $20 card that for most decks, you play 3 or 4 copies of this, so it's kind of hard to get. And there are several mass decks, so a lot of decks need this to actually function. But this has a skill where you look at the top 5 and choose a Dragon Tree or Mask card. Mask with an S. This itself only has, Mask without the S, so you can't choose this. But you can choose any Dragon Tree or Mask unit from those top 5 added to your hand. And then from drop, if you have a grade 3 Vanguard without Mask, you can put this into your soul and reveal a grade 3 with Mask to ride it. And if your opponent's on grade 3, you Persona Ride, which is really cool. Alright, cool little robot fella. This is the Orphis version of what I was talking about, where it gets 5k attack and shield, but it's only on Orphis Mask, so it's kind of dead early on, regretfully. This is the grade 1 equivalent of that grade 2 robot that we talked about. So this one says if you put a grade 2 set order in your order zone, you can put this to soul to draw 1, which is pretty cool. It would have been nice if that other grade 1 I said that counter charges like soul blasted, so you can have this crazy interaction where like this goes to soul, draw 1, and then you soul blast out him to then counter charge. That's about it. Got this amazingly beautiful Knight of Elegance, Melvuin here, who unfortunately is just an anti Griffoguilio card, which is really obnoxious. Got this really cool looking fairy, Lament fairy here. Got this chipmunk fellow, which is kind of cool because he lets you, if you use 3 or more finger plank gauges, he gets 10k to the end of the turn. And then this card I feel was really wasted art. It looks really beautiful, but all it does is if it's placed from drop, you soul charge, get 5k. We're actually going to get ourselves the Dibolos Rapid Carrier Geno. It's probably one of the few sets where Bruce doesn't get a triple rare. So this is actually just a double rare. This is a very good card for Bruce, however. So in your front row, when this unit attacks, if you're in Final Rush, you Soul Blast 2. For every 2 cards in your damage zone, choose one of your rear guards in the same column as this unit and stand it. And if you did 2, they both get 5k to the end of the turn. So this gives you 5 attacks in V-Man's Bruce. And also, at the end of your turn, if you're in Final Rush, put it into Soul, choose a normal unit from your Soul, you may put it into your hands. You can add itself right back, so you can dodge, again, Diva retiring it, but you can also then add like a PG or something in your Soul, so it's a super cool card. That was the X, Order, Aminogrugio, we got the dog here, but yeah, we got Aminogrugio here, which is going to be the new, deck that you can play from Dark States here. So this has 2 skills. One that says when this is placed on rear, look at the top 5, add a card with its own name or a Mask of Hidragroom from among them and put it to your hand. So that skill is pretty strong in terms of consistency. Top 5 isn't the best, but it is still really nice to have. Then it has an axe skill where on Vanguard Turtle once per turn, you Soul Blast 1, choose up to 1 trigger unit from your drop, bind it, and until the end of the turn, your opponent cannot increase the attack of any units with trigger effects that have the same trigger icon as a card in your bind zone, which is really crazy because it just turns off your opponent's triggers. They still get the effects, so they can still like heal and draw and stuff, but they just can't increase and get the power buff during their turn. So that is pretty strong. And of course, this has a mask version. And this works really well with this grade 2 because then you put the trigger into Soul and then you Soul Blast that trigger to then bind it. Hey, we got ourselves the art of the sneak peek mat. This is actually Barrel Magus support, the Glacia Gracie. She's not very good. She just says for every 10 you have in your soul, give your Vanguard 5k after retiring her, and if it's Barrel Magus, you get 10 instead of 5 initially. Not great, not gonna lie. We got the really cool Unfanable Juggler here. Whenever I look at it, he just reminds me of Fox Spirit Sama. But I wish he was a little bit more useful, but I don't think he's gonna work out. Likewise with this really cool girl here, who is support for Amna Grugio, because their like archetype name is Evil Eye. But all it does really is get 10k to the end of the turn. This is a pretty cool card because you can discard a trigger to retire, I think, a whole column. Yeah, a whole column, which is pretty cool. Gonna get ourselves the, instead of Garnet, it's gonna be the Galnet, which is, you know, the carbuncle cycle card for Dragon Empire, which is one of the weaker ones, because all it does is it lets you draw a card on rear, and of course it gets the 20k shield. Alright. We got ourselves the Midnight Recycle Cleaners. And then we've got ourselves the Grander Edge Dragoon, or I guess it's just Dragon, huh? Okay. So this says in your hand, it is, if you were to reveal a grade 3, it counts as 2 cards. And if you have a Bastion Vanguard, this gets 10k attack and 10k shield, also active on your opponent's turn. So it's really hard to actually attack through. I got ourselves the Almagister Stealth-Sphere, which is the support card for Astroya here. It's a very divisive card, because I think it is actually not very good, but in theory it should be. It says if you have Astroya, you play this counter charge, choose up to 3 triggers. Nope, just 3 triggers from your drop, put them into soul, and then if one of them was removed this turn by the effect of one of your vanguards, you give them the vanguard a crit. So it's just this weird order that tries to fix everything that the mass messed up, but the fact that it's an order makes it kind of clunky. This card is pretty cool. This is the Sanctus Sanctus, but the fact that it's a normal order kind of hurts. This would have been really useful in something like Graham Grace if it was like a set order. But it just says that all your rear guards get boost to the end of the turn. And then we're going to get the Sylvanhorn Beast Lepicore here, which if you have the Magnolia Mask and it's placed, you can call this out to rear and it gets 5k to the end of the turn. So it's like a Maple, but for Magnolia Mask. Alright, sorry about that. This is the last pack here. Thankfully, managed to catch the audio issue before it actually became an actual issue here. But we got ourselves the very last pack here. Gotta say, not the craziest box. It started out pretty good. We did get some good hits, but nothing super crazy as we go towards the end of it here. So in terms of breaking even or not, our good old 5-cent buddies here, the commons and rares that are, you know, I don't think it'll be worth too much overall lump sum here. 90 of them. We're gonna put that at, you know, 450. Then we got ourselves a couple of the rares, maybe even commons. Might have just only been rares. That might actually be worth a crumb, but honestly, these at most I think will be worth about 10 cents. So that's going to be one short of $1. So let's just say this is all $1 for $5.50 there. Then we got ourselves the double rares. This one we actually did pretty well on. First off, we've got the Grandeur Edge Dragon here. Bastion Accord is set to be pretty popular, pretty strong deck coming out of this set. So I think this is actually going to be valued at quite a lot. It's going to start at around 5, tiptoe between, you know, like 7 and 10 or something like that. So we're just going to say 5 off the top here, so that's going to round us up. Genos here, I think there wasn't a lot of showing from Japan for VMan Spruce, so I don't think Geno himself is going to be worth a lot. I think he's going to settle down to around $1 eventually, so that puts us at $11.50. But then we've got, of course, the mask reprint, which it's kind of tricky how this is going to play out, because right now, for the longest time, this has been valued at $20, but it is a reprint now, so that might drive down the price a bit. In addition to that, we also have the mask special malevolent mask special set that they're going to come out with, which is going to be another reprint yet again. So I'm just going to put this tentatively at $20, but I think it might just go down to like 15. It's kind of hard to say, so we'll just say that it stays at 20, which is going to put us to, I think, $21.50. Yolanda here, I don't see this being much, so let's just say it's 50 cents to round us up to 22. Likewise here with these two, they might be at most 50 cents, so let's just say that we're at 23 with those. Then we got ourselves the triples, which we did, I think, okay. It's kind of hard to say where this specific carbuncle will lie. I think it's actually going to be maybe at most like $2 just because of its rarity. I don't see it being played as much, so that's going to put us at 25. The other carbuncle here is actually going to see a lot of play, I think. I'm going to give it a sort of undercut of $5 to give us $30, even though I think it's probably going to be more like 10 to 15 for a very long time. So maybe we'll say it is that. So put us at, I believe, 35, right? So let's just say $10 for that. Omnia Grigio, I think, is actually going to be worth quite a bit. I think this is going to be at least like $6. So that's going to put us at 41. And then the Gritty Vask, unfortunately, is not going to be worth anything at all. So that's going to put us like 47 with this being at $1. And of course, that just about makes us round everything up. The Ruin Collector FR definitely makes us break even here. So let's just say this puts us at 50. But then, of course, we've got the Rosarium Fairy FFR here, which is going to fetch a pretty hefty penny just because it is an FFR. FFRs are always generally really expensive, unless there's a Seek version. Sometimes then the FFRs are a little bit cheaper. But this, I think typically in Japan is going towards like $40, $50. I expect this due to American TCG inflation. This is going to be, I think, $70 overall, to be honest. So we actually did break super positive, combining the 70 with the 50 that I said we had here for a big lump sum of 120 in this one box. So pretty good on my part, I would say. Of course, we have the marker, which I really don't think adds too much anymore because it's being reprinted to death at this rate, which is really good. But that'll do it for set 12 here. I hope you guys have the best of luck when you guys open up this set and have a lot of fun with it, because I think there's a lot of really cool stuff in it, and I hope you guys actually get to enjoy it. But till next time, take care of yourselves and each other, play Vanguard, and have yourselves a damn good one.